As part of our road trip to Canada and Alaska, Jenny and I made a plan to meet up with longtime friends Dick and Janet and their eldest daughter Robin for a week or so. They flew out from New Jersey and joined us in Anchorage on the 14th of July. The hotel that they stayed in the first night was right next to a float plane lagoon. After some catching up and a cup of coffee, we headed west to the Kenai Peninsula and the town of Seward. Along the way, we came upon a family of Dall's sheep right next to the road. At one of the visitor centers, Dick got to meet a longtime hero of his. Just outside of Seward is Exit Glacier. Despite the heavy rain, we walked to the glacier to check it out. This is the harbor at Seward. Note the large cruise ship in the background. We signed up for a 5-hour sightseeing trip around Resurrection Bay. Early in the trip, we spotted several of these sea otters. We also got to see quite a few puffins with their brightly colored beaks. Seals and seabirds were everywhere. The tour boat stopped at Fox Island for about an hour. There we feasted on a lunch of prime rib and salmon. Here, Dick and Janet are warming up inside the boat while the rest of our crew is outside trying to capture photos of the beauty that surrounded us. A large group of high school students from Minnesota were on our boat, as was a forest ranger who provided insights into what we were seeing. The following day, we drove around to the north shore of the Kenai Peninsula to the town of Homer. Along the way, we stopped at this lovely Russian Orthodox church. We had arranged to spend Wednesday, July 17th, on a bear viewing trip with a company called Emerald Air Service. This is their dock. Here, Dick and Robin are donning rain pants and thigh-high rubber wading boots, which would come in very handy later on in the day. Ready to go. This is Chris Day, one of the principals in the company, and with her is the pilot, Dave. Chris is providing safety instructions and a general orientation to our group of 9. Once inside the aircraft, Dave also provided some last-minute instructions. Underway. The flight across Cook Inlet to Katmai National Park took about an hour and a half. En route, we spotted this whale. It's hard to see in the picture, but it was a spectacular sight. Dick had been sick for a few days, so it looks like he relished the opportunity to doze off for a bit. The next photos were of the shoreline of Katmai National Park. Note our shadow on the beach. We flew past several glaciers, and the plane was buffeted quite a lot by the winds that were coming off of these glaciers. Dave put us down about 100 yards off the beach in waist-deep water. However, the 30-mile-an-hour winds kept trying to blow the plane back out to sea. Dave and Lance, who was our guide, had to strain with all their might to keep the plane steady while the passengers got off. Once everyone finally waded to the beach, we stopped to regroup. This guy was wandering along the beach looking for food. Keeping our eyes on the bear, we made our way across the tidal flats to the mainland. Meanwhile, he found a few clams to eat. We spent part of the day walking through tall grass like this to get to the areas where the bears were foraging for food or resting. Here, Lance is leading the way to check on the depth in the current to be sure it was safe for us to proceed. This was a pretty big footprint. We located this female with 3 one-year-old cubs. Lance suggested that we move to a different area and return here later in the day, which is what we did. Lance is out here every day and has a good idea where the bears are and which ones. We located this female with 3 one-year-old cubs. Lance suggested that we move to a different area and return here later in the day, which is what we did. Lance is out here every day and has a good idea which bears are which and where they are likely to be. We located this female with 3 one-year-old cubs. Lance suggested that we move to a different area and return here later in the day, which is what we did. Lance is out here every day and has a good idea which bears are which and where they are likely to be found. Sure enough, about 20 minutes later, we encountered this female. She had 2 two-year-old cubs, and they were foraging for food. They would far rather have fish. However, the salmon had not yet begun to run in this area, so the bears were forced to rely on grasses and sedges. After observing those 3 for about 45 minutes, we backtracked looking for the mom and her 3 cubs again. And we found them with little difficulty. Seems that it was lunchtime for the cubs. So, we took a cue from them and did the same. Judging by the smiles on their faces, I would say that our friends were having a great time. What a backdrop. Watching the cubs frolic was something very special. Lance told us that this tire washed ashore in an extreme high tide episode a few months earlier and became the toy of choice for the cubs. He also said there was something in the petroleum-based rubber that appealed to the cubs and that they constantly gnawed on the tire. Watching the cubs was no different from watching 2 human brothers horseplay with each other. As we were to meet Dave and our ride home at 4 o'clock, it was time to head for the beach. More creeks to cross. We passed this large male along the way. By the way, all the bears in this slideshow are brown bears, also known as grizzly bears. Waiting for the plane. Some were better at waiting than others. We encountered quite a bit of turbulence for the first 15 or 20 minutes, but then things smoothed out and the rest of the ride was quite comfortable. Dick and I, after a great day of tracking bears. On Friday, Dick, Ginny, and I drove up to the Independence Mine Historic State Park. Along the way, we stopped several times to photograph this beautiful river. The Independence Mine was operated during the first half of the 20th century and was a major producer of gold. It was later turned into a historical park and provides visitors with an idea of what it was like for those who lived and worked in an Alaska mining camp. A few of the buildings have been rebuilt, but most remain in their original state. We returned to Anchorage via Hatcher Pass and this picturesque valley. All in all, it was a great week with good friends in a spectacular setting.